Good morning, boys. Next couple of lessons you have the opportunity to do a nice freehand sketch of the through or common dovetail joint, and we're going to take you through that. If I just show you an example of what a through dovetail sketch looks like labelled, we can see that we've got the two boards coming together, or the two parts of the jewellery box, for example. It could be the end and the side. You can see on this particular drawing we've got the tails, the dovetails labelled, and you can see through the method that I've drawn it in typical isometric freehand fashion. They've actually used a method of projection to show how the joint goes together, and then on the other side you can see how we've drawn the pins. So that's what we're actually going to take you through today, and you've got a couple of lessons to do that. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to do the whole lot in one go, but obviously we're after quality, we're after accuracy, and we would like to see even a little bit of rendering of that object to make it look lifelike. So let's make a beginning. All right, first thing we're going to start with is an isometric prism, or an isometric basis to draw on the page. Give yourself a bit of room, and we just turn that around. And I'm constructing the drawing very lightly. So at this stage, everything is done lightly because that gives me the opportunity to rub it out later on, obviously. So I've got the thickness of the boards there, and I've got the thickness of the board coming through the other direction there, vertical lines. I'm going to draw this in as well, and we can draw the thickness of the material coming off the other side there. Now, at this stage, I am going to be having the other part of the drawing start out here later on. So I just want to be conscious of that. Just focusing now on the tails, or the tail board. This is generally how I mark it out. I know that other people do things slightly differently. But basically, there's a couple of things. Across the width of our board, when we're making it in the workshop, we divide the width in half. And because it's only around about 66 millimeters in width, we're going to come in approximately half the thickness. And our board's going to be 12 mil, so we're going to come in approximately 6 mil along that shoulder line and up 6 mil. At this point, now from the center line, I'm going to come out 6 mil either side, and that gives me the width of the tail down at the base. And I just project my center line through here because that's going to give me a rough idea of basically where I'm going to draw the angle, or the pitch, the slope of my dovetails. And we can see here we just got these sloping away. Now, we're not going to get into pitch or slope at this point. Just to understand, that's basically how it's going to look marked out in the workshop. So if I just turn myself around here and put the shoulder in across there, and I can use these now to project these ends square across the end of my board using the isometric baselines that I've already started with, so that these lines here are should be running parallel to those. And effectively, you probably can see now that I've got my two tail lines on my tails set out there. So what I need to do to finish that off is drop a vertical line down the back here, because this part's actually being removed with the saw, and join those two lines parallel. And that line comes across there like so. And this point here, this is all removed, it's all waste. So this back point is going to shoot off there parallel, because that's all we see. And the same with this bottom intersecting point with the baseline and the shoulders. They project back as well, parallel to the baselines. That's all I can see in there. So at this stage, the first half of my tail board, my tails fairly obviously labelled there, done. All I'm going to do now is firm in what I would normally see to finish the drawing off. Now at this point, if you want to do a really neat job, and this is what we're expecting, if you want to do a really neat job, you might want to think about firming in and using some coloured pastels or pencils to enhance the visual presentation of your drawing. So I'm just firming in with my lead pencil here for the purposes of the demonstration, the lines we actually see. And you can see the tailboard there has been completed, and that's the first half of the drawing done. Now that hasn't taken very long at all. I could rub out some of my construction to finish it off. The second part of the drawing is to, and I'm going to take a little bit more space here, is to actually finish off the pins. So we've got the tails labelled and drawn. The next part of the drawing is the pins. And so what we want here is a nice face. It's easier if I turn my page around instead of trying to. I get the face there and the thickness for the shoulder in there again. And what I now do is use an old tech drawing technique called the method of projection, where you can see these lines are projected through to the corresponding points on the job, on the drawing. So I'm going to project these lines through there. I'm going to project those lines through there. I'm going to project all my important points on the drawing through, as you can see. Now what I've got are the reference points where these would be actually marked out on the face opposite to the tails. So we're marking out the pins. So now what I do here is I project these points down, slightly downwards, to try and mirror this angle here. And to try and mirror these angles here, I'm just going to project those points down on the face of that piece of material. And now what I can do, because I've already got these projection lines here, I can just firm these in, because they are going to stay. This is going to stay here, obviously. And these back shoulder points, or the seat of the joint there, is also staying. And this part here would also be firmed in. It's really important to use construction lines because it makes it so much easier if you need to rub lines out later on. Now, I haven't used an eraser at all at the moment. I'm hoping not to. I'm just firming in those lines nicely. Now, the last thing I need to do is to fill in this section in here, which is finishing the joint. So I just use normal conventions. This line here, I want to project a nice little line parallel to that. I want to project a line parallel to this, lightly down there. And that's pretty much it. So now where this point intersects across the back, it runs parallel to my baseline. That's the back edge of the material, back edge of the material. And it just so happens that the vertical lines pretty much correlate up the back there with those front edges. And I can firm that in. I can firm that little bit in across there. And now you can see the tails pretty much complete. Now it would be really good to rub that out. Obviously, all of my projection lines here, I'm going to leave to you to rub out when you're finished, and just leave the tails and the pins. So now we've got these pins in the pin board. This is often referred to as the pin board. I don't go that far. And the tail board. But most importantly, we identify the tails, or the dovetails, and the pins. Now, obviously, you can see that's how the joint goes together. One fits into the other. It slides along that particular axis. So it's not a real difficult joint once you get your head around it and your marking out and cutting is accurate. Gents, I'm going to leave it there. That's the next couple of lessons. The final thing I would like to suggest to you is a good bit of labelling, block letters. Finish off through dovetail for your labelling, and then of course use some rendering to make this look lifelike. Bit of grain lines on your end grains, a bit of end grain here on these particular pins, follows in the end grain on those surfaces there, and there'd be a little bit end grain in there. Just makes it look a bit lifelike, but don't forget, colour would be a really good addition as well. All right, guys, I hope that helps. Nice, easy drawing to do. Looking for some good quality. Good luck.